Hi everyone. Welcome to Aditi Infotech, where we discuss mostly about databases. So today's discussion topic is size of database with respect to Oracle. So what is the size of a database? To be precise, what is the size of Oracle database? So what is so big in this question is generally you won't have a single answer for this. You will be having at least 3, 4 or 5 answers for this particular question. That doesn't mean no answer, some answer is correct or some answer is wrong. So it is just about the perspective of the database. Your perspective towards the database is different. Developer's perspective towards the different database is different. And Unix administrator or storage administrator perspective towards the database is definitely different. So let us try to understand the perspective of a developer first, how he looks the database and what it means for him, the size of the database, or what it means to him what a database is. So let us just try to understand how a developer thinks about it. So before that, we might have seen lots of time this scenario where you will see lots of huge data files being filled up, and you say to a developer that this particular environment is huge and you have to release some space. So what will your developer do? Most often most probably he will go there and he will try to truncate some tables or delete some tables or delete some rows in the tables. Some purging activity he will do with respect to the segments. So when I say segments, it can be a table, or it can be an index, or it can be a materialized view, or it can even be a table partitions. So these type of things he will be performing. That is because for a developer, database is a combination or a logical thing, and that's a combination of tables, indexes or whatever, table partitions, materialized views, and then there are many other objects other than these things. But the other objects are synonyms, sequences, materialized views, and procedures, and functions, packages, package body, etc. But what he tries to do, there are lots of objects here. What he tries to do is different again. So he simply go and he will check the total size of the database by calculating the size of the individual table, and he will sum up those. He will calculate the indexes, he will sum up those, and he will calculate the table partitions as well as materialized views. So these things he is going to do. So now let us say this calculation has been done, and obviously he will be referring to user underscore segments or DBA underscore segments to calculate this. And he has told us that there is 100 GB is the size of the database. There is nothing wrong. What is told is definitely correct. Now let us go and ask the same question to a Unix administrator or an operating system guy. So what is operating system guy going to do? Let us say operating system has allocated us /u01 and /u02, which are 500 GB of size each. Both are of 500 GB. Out of which we have used somewhere around 400 GB and 400 GB. He will simply go to the mount points which are allocated to us, and he will simply say something like disk free -h, which is h is human readable, and he will understand that this is 400 GB, this is 400 GB occupied, and he will come to a conclusion that our database size is 800 GB. But he will not go and check what are exactly there in this 400 GB or in this 400 GB. This can include Oracle Home. This can include control file, redo log file, data file, alert log files, trace files, and listener log files or listener file, TNS names, password file, and there are many other files as well. So we might be having OPatch latest version. Sometimes we might be keeping a older version of OPatch. He doesn't care what it is there. He simply go there to the operating system level, and he will simply tell us one thing, that it is 800 GB. So is this correct perspective? Yes. In the perspective of Unix administrator, even this is also correct. So, but as a DBA, what are you going to do? How are you going to decide the size of the database? So this DBA perspective is seriously important, and DBA doesn't have one perspective. He should be having the perspective of developer, he should be having the perspective of Unix team, and DBA alone will have some other different perspectives. Now let us consider the perspective given by developer team. So this, yes, I am going to encourage this, and yes, developer, Yeah, he has told us that it is 100 GB, and you can know this. You can calculate it by using DBA underscore segments, and that should be fine enough. And this is once this is the size of the database with respect to the developer. The second thing is 100 GB minus the fragmented blocks. Fragmented blocks. So what do I mean by fragmented blocks? What do I mean by fragmentation? That's altogether a very big story, but let us discuss in short. So the data is generally in any RDBMS instance, let it be Oracle or whatever it is in the blocks. So every block will have percentile free, percentile occupied. That's altogether a different story, but still. Now let us try to understand. This is an employee table, and this and this blocks are filled. That is because due to some business activity. Later on, this is also filled, this is also filled, this is also filled, and this is also filled. So now when you try to do a select star from EMP, your server process has to scan from here to here. This is the low watermark from which it has to start scanning, and this is the high watermark to which it has to scan. So low watermark, high watermark, we'll discuss it later in further fragmentation separate class. But for now, let us say there is some business happening, and one of the employer has left here. So when an employee is left, this will be marked as deleted. This particular thing will be marked as deleted. So that means this data is no longer existing, logically marked as deleted, marked as deleted. So now what happened is, whenever you are trying to do select star from EMP, though the number of blocks occupied by EMP table are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it is going to scan from low watermark to high watermark. That means it is also scanning this block as well as this block. This particular thing, this marked as deleted block, is nothing but a fragmented block. I mean, even this one and this one is also a fragmented block. So when I am saying the size of the employee table, you can tell in both ways. Either you can tell it as 8 blocks, that is because physically it is still allocated there, or you can even say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks. So when it comes to a table, it is 8 or 5. When it comes to a database, it is 100 GB minus fragmented blocks. So what I am trying to do in this particular case is, I am simply deleting, I am just ignoring this particular blocks, and I am telling the size of the database. So hopefully you have got this as well. And fragmentation, obviously there is lot to know about the fragmentation, but still as of now, let us try to understand the next thing. So let me erase this. Sorry for taking time here. Yeah. So now, fragmentation is now DBA will have a separate perspective when you ask him about the size of the database. So one of them is he will simply say like he will simply check data. Wherever the data exists, that is the size of the database. So where will the data exist? It will be existing in permanent data files, as well as active data can also be present in your undo data files. Let us assume there are 10 permanent data files of, there are like 10 data files of one as 20 GB. So the total is 200 GB. Sorry for that, 200 GB. Now let us also assume that there is an undo table space or undo data file of 20 GB, one undo data file. So it's on a whole, it is 220 gigabytes of your database. So now now your developer is saying somewhere around 100 GB, your Unix team is saying 800 GB, and DBA accepting the inputs from development team is saying it is 100 GB, but he's also saying that can be fragment. Let us consider the fragmented blocks are 10 GB here. Sorry, I missed it. So then the size of the database would be 90 GB, right? So now this particular DBA with respect to development team is accepting for 100 GB, but also he is suggesting one more size as 90 GB. Now, apart from this, he has come up with another thesis or another theory saying the data size is 220 GB. That is because I have 10 data files. 10 permanent data files of 20 GB each, which is resulting in 200 GB, and there is 120 GB additional data file, which is your undo data file. So on a whole, it is 220 GB. So no statement is wrong here. Every statement here is correct because the perspective which we are looking is different. That's it. Now DBA, this is the first version of DBA and third version of overall thing. So let us go with let us say this is the third version. Now the fourth version of the DBA can be like this. That can be this entire thing like a permanent data files plus undo data files. One second. Plus undo tables, undo data file, so which is equal to 220 GB, and temporary data files. We also have something called as temporary data file, right? So now let us assume this temporary data file also is like somewhere around 20 GB. So the total size would be somewhere around 240 GB. Is this wrong? No, it's not like that. This is also correct. Now then can be another scenario where your DBA can consider the size of the database in some other different way. The other different way is he can calculate all these things, which is all data files plus the size of control file plus the size of redo log files. So you must be aware of redo log files, and sometimes this can also include archive log files, very important files. Okay. So this can be the size of the database. So now let us assume this is already 240 GB, and you have, let us assume you have 8 redo log files. These are 8. So 8 into half GB, somewhere around 4 GB. 8 into 500 MB. And your control file will not be more than 1 GB. It will be less than that. But let us consider it as 1 GB. So it is somewhere around 245 GB plus archive logs. So how many days of archive logs you are going to maintain? It all depends upon in your environment. So this is the size of the database, but still the story is still pending. So let me take the color change and come back to you. So why do we need to know the size of the database? Mostly that is because you might be taking a backup. So let us say in Oracle, we have multiple types of backups. So one backup we have is EXPDP and IMPDP, which we call it as Oracle data pump process. So this is a logical backup. So when you try to take backup using EXPDP and IMPDP, the size would be somewhere nearby this one. That is because your EXPDP will not consider the fragmented blocks. This is the beauty of this, but this will take time. Now let us try to understand. There is another utility called RMAN, Recovery Manager. It takes, when it takes the backup, it can be somewhere around this size, 100 GB. That is because RMAN is going to consider all the allocated blocks. So earlier I was telling you, even a fragmented block is also allocated block. So this will be the size of the database when, this will be the size of the backup when you are taking the backup using RMAN. So this should be fine. So now let us try to understand. Before, this is a logical backup, this is a logical backup, and this is a physical backup. This is altogether a different concept. Let us discuss this in some other videos. But before this RMAN backup, we used to have something called as user managed physical backup. If you remember this one, user managed physical backup, we can take cold backup as well as hot backup. Here the concept is very, very simple. You are going in cold backup, you are going to shut down the database. Yes, we are not using that nowadays, but still let me explain you the process. You are simply in cold backup, you are simply bringing down the database and copying this one, data files, all data files, control file, and archive log files, not redo log files, archive log files. So in this case, the size of the the size of the data backup will be all 10 data files. We are not going to take temporary data file. So 220 GB, which is 11 data files, 10 permanent data files plus one undo data file plus control file, which is negligible in size. You can consider it as 1 GB, and plus some archive logs. How many archive logs? It all depends upon the size of your database and how many days of archive logs you want to take and all. If it is hot backup, archive log backup is mandatory. If it is cold backup, that's not mandatory. Now, considering if this is the hot backup, you need to have archive logs, because in hot backup, without archive logs, you cannot restore or recover the database. That's the whole purpose of taking the backup, which will not be fulfilled if you are not taking the archive log backup. So this archive logs, it all depends upon the time and number of redos or archives generated or changes happening on the database, but the remaining two are fixed. So this is about the size of the database. Let me summarize all the things again. So a developer thinks the size of the database is combination of tables, indexes, table partitions, materialized synonyms, sequences, whatever. These are all the objects. So it is completely logical. A Unix administrator can take the data. See, he can tell you that the amount of mount points used by your Oracle objects, that would be, in this particular scenario, it can be 800 GB. So always remember, this will be the highest size. This will be the first size. And the second size would be definitely this one. So when you calculate, and then obviously third one would be this one. Fourth one would be this one. And see, this and this can be equal in some scenarios where you have just done defragmentation. But mostly this will be the fifth size and this will be kept in ascending order. This would be the scenario I am trying to tell you. So Unix administrator thinks in this way. Coming to DBA have to respect the developer perspective, and he is okay with this. And also DBA will come up with another perspective, which is developer perspective minus fragmented blocks. This is another one. And DBA can also say the size of the database is 220 GB by calculating permanent data files as well as undo data files. And also he can, in another phase, he can add this particular temp file and do this and say it is 240 GB. And he can also combine control file and archive log files and redo log files and further define one more abbreviation for your database size. And now let us try to understand. So this is we get this from DBA underscore segments. So this we get from DBA underscore segments. This anyways we get it from disk-free-h command. Now coming to this one, so this and this is same. So for this you need to do some calculations on DBA underscore tables underscore indexes. You have to check number of free blocks and total blocks occupied. There is a calculation for this. You can find that in Google. If you search for the fragmented portion in a table in Oracle, you will get that query. There will be a calculation, mathematics happening there. And then coming to this, you can simply refer something like DBA underscore data underscore files. For this, you have to use this DBA underscore data files as well as DBA underscore temp files. Okay. And this one, apart from these things, we may have to use $control file and $log file. This is the size of the database. This is the perspectives of sizes of the database. Yeah, that's it about the particular topic. And if you have any further doubts, you can just comment in the section so that I will try to answer your every question. And any other on-demand topics, you can definitely ask for that so that I can record a video of it and I can deliver it to you in the same channel. Thank you.